so much for tuning in to our second episode of Gold Talk. I'm so excited to be able to chat with you guys today, and I have a lovely Debbie Berry with me today. Excited. And we're going to be talking about the top 3 things you probably didn't know about closing costs and down payments. So those are some of the top questions we get, and I'm so excited to talk to you about that. So I'm going to let Debbie introduce herself, and then we are going to jump in.
Hello, how are you? My name is Debbie Berry, and I'm a mortgage loan originator with North Point Bank here in Charleston, South Carolina. And I've been in the business for about 21 years. And my biggest feature is I help a lot of first-time home buyers purchasing their first home.
She does, and Debbie's phenomenal, guys. Okay, so if this is your first time, or you're going to be a first-time home buyer, Debbie is like your go-to, okay? So she, as you can see, she has 21 years of experience. Very few lenders can say they have that much experience. But I will say, I think I met you when I first started, so about 4 years ago. I've known Debbie 4 years. And she hasn't changed. She's absolutely amazing, so easy to talk to. And, if you're in the process of getting ready to purchase, especially the financing piece, that can be a bit of a daunting task. And so you really do want to be working with a loan officer that you feel like you can talk to about your particular situation, who understands you, okay? So it's important. So I feel like you have that, Debbie. So before we get into this, you guys, please check in to our page. If you're watching on Facebook, please hit the check-in button on our business page, Rose Gold Properties. If you're watching on IG, Rose_Gold_Properties. I don't believe you can check in on IG, right? I don't think IG has a check-in. If you can, wait, there you go. Wave at us on IG, but definitely check in. But, and let people know you're here, and share and like our video and comment. So that's the one thing we want to mention to you. If you have questions, especially the topics that we're going to have today, if you have questions about closing costs, down payment, anything that we cover or go over, please drop those questions in the comment section, and we're going to save a little bit of time at the end to be able to answer any questions that you have. So without further ado, we're just going to get into it. So, so I was talking to Debbie, and I said, Debbie, let's talk. What are we going to talk about this week? And she said, we're going to talk about closing costs and down payment, because, those tend to be the things that surprise buyers the most whenever they're finding out, okay, how much money do I need to bring to the table to be able to get my keys? And just a lot of questions and, misunderstandings and misconceptions about that. So that's our topic for today. And I will say that, as realtors, I do want to make sure that I understand, how much money you have to bring to the table, because if I'm going to be out here showing you properties, I want to make sure that I'm showing you properties that are within your budget, and I'm not showing you properties that, you're going to have to bring more than what you have in your account to the closing table. So this is why this is really important to have this discussion up front. So again, part of, what I do is whenever we get ready to take you out to see a home. Before we do that, I make sure I have a conversation with Debbie or whichever loan officer you've selected to find out all of your numbers, so I can make sure I'm showing you properties within that guideline. So let's jump into it. So number 1, we want to talk a little bit about how closing costs differ from a down payment. So Debbie, talk to us first. Let's talk about down payment first. Can you tell us, what people probably don't know about closing costs versus down payment?
Well, a lot of times when you hear that you have a no down payment program, then people think they're bringing $0 to the closing table, which is inaccurate, because the down payment is completely separate of closing costs and prepaids. So if you're getting a 0 down payment program, that's great, but do keep in mind you'll still have money that you have to bring to the closing table that includes closing costs and prepaids, and especially right now, since many sellers aren't paying towards those closing costs. Mm-hmm. We do have low down payment programs, so you don't have to have a 20% down payment. We can go as low as 3% to 3.5%, and it would all depend on like your credit scores, your debt to income ratios, on which program we end up using. There are a couple of 100% programs out there, which is no down payment, and that includes the USDA, which is a rural program, and then the VA, which is the Veterans Administration program.
Awesome. Okay, so you back up to something you said. You talked about prepaids, but even before we get into prepaids, I want to go back to helping folks understand why you have to bring money to the closing table. So where is all this money going? Let's talk about that. So on average, what would you say closing costs are for someone?
Typically, you can say 3% of the sales price is going to be your closing cost amount, and that can be less when we actually do the estimated fee sheet for you because of the origination fee. So sometimes we try to get as close to a 0 origination fee, so it reduces your closing costs. And then prepaids typically are about 1% to 1.5% of the sales price. And those differ based on wherever you're purchasing, because each county has different tax assessments.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to find typically higher taxes in the Dorchester County area or in Charleston County areas. And then also the size of the house and the price of the house determines your taxes, and as well as your homeowner's insurance, which prepaids are homeowner's insurance, taxes, as well as setting up your escrow account for future disbursements for your taxes and insurance.
Okay.
I hope we're not talking too much.
Well, so you have questions, again, if you have questions about anything that we're talking about, please drop questions in the comments, okay? All right, so we're going to move on to number 2. You keep mentioning this word prepaids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are people out here who don't know what prepaids are.
Mm-hmm.
What are prepaids and how are they separate from closing costs?
Okay, so do you want me to explain the closing costs first?
Yes.
Okay, so closing costs are basically how the lender is paid and how the attorney is paid and any third-party agencies. So the lender usually has an underwriting fee, and that can range depending on which company you use or which lender you use from about $900 up to maybe $1,100, $1,200. And then if there's an origination fee, that would be part of the closing costs as well. And then there's third-party fees, which is going to be the credit report, the tax service fee, and then the appraisal fee. And right now, most appraisals run about $495, and that's an upfront cost. And then you have your attorney fees, which is paid to the attorney who closes the loan at the end. And they can roughly run, I'd say about $1,200 to $1,500, and that's not including your lender's title insurance and owner's title insurance, because that's based on the price of the home. So that would be in addition to the attorney fees. That's pretty much the closing costs. Prepaids are basically benefiting you. We have to pay your homeowner's insurance 1 year in advance at closing, and then we have to set up escrow accounts to pay your future disbursements for your property taxes as well as your homeowner's insurance. And so those are billed annually. So we put aside this money in an escrow account with your monthly mortgage payment, and each year that those come due, then the lender pays them for you.
Which is great. So that means you don't have to worry about doing that yourself every year. They're going to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So now let me ask you this. You might want to explain a fee sheet. Are the prepaids disclosed to the client on the fee sheet?
Yes.
Okay. So backing up to a fee sheet, and what is that? Please explain what a fee sheet is and whether they should be getting one.
Yeah. Well, I typically do it when I'm doing the pre-qualification process. I'll send the buyer one just so they can see what's entailed, what fees are entailed, and how the program kind of works with the down payment. And then I'll also send it to the real estate agent so they're aware of what the costs are. And so it breaks it down line for line. Usually you're going to see your lender fees, and then you're going to see like your appraisal fee, and then it'll break down like your escrows and your prepaid interest on the right-hand side of the paper. So it is very, very, very detailed.
So when should a buyer, let's say someone watching, their buyer, when should they expect to receive this fee sheet? Because I have actually met folks who haven't received a fee sheet from a lender. So I'm like, well, how do you know how much you're paying if you don't have a fee sheet?
I mean, I do it right at the beginning when I pre-qual someone. I'll email them out a fee sheet.
Okay, does it have to be, like, are there any laws that say that it has to be turned in, like, they have to get it within 3 days of?
No, not.
Okay.
Once you get a contract,
Mm-hmm.
yes, then you have to have a loan estimate.
Okay.
And that has to be within 3 days of the lender getting the contract.
Okay, so backing up, if you are shopping lenders, okay, so if you're in the process of not sure which lender you want to work with, whatever lender you've allowed to pull your credit, they should give you what's called a fee sheet, okay? So that will allow you to be able to compare lender A to lender B to lender C, however many lenders you use. And then once we have gone out and picked out the home that you're interested in, then you're going to get a loan estimate. So once we're under contract, then you'll get a loan estimate that fully details. So how does the loan estimate differ from the fee sheet?
Well, so the estimated fee sheet is just kind of like a one-page detail of all the fees. And that's at the very beginning, and then once you find that property, that's gonna be the actual loan estimate, and that's a 2-page document.
Okay.
So it'll break down like your payment and the estimated cash to close on the first page, and then it'll break down line for line on the second page.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that because a lot of times people want to know specifically how much do I have to bring at closing, like right when you apply, and until you figure out which house that you're wanting or you go under contract, she's really not going to be able to give you those specifics. So, we kind of give you really good ballparks, but again, that goes back to narrowing down, what it is that you're looking for and being able to kind of get that house under contract.
Yeah.
So, and I believe our third point, you've already given a breakdown of closing costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Oh, 2 questions.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Okay.
All right, so first question, can my real estate agent sign my closing document for me?
Absolutely not. Unless I will say this, unless your real estate agent has power of attorney documentation for you, they really don't need to be signing your closing documents for you. Typically what happens at closing is your attorney will, now that you will more than likely give your attorney power of attorney documentation, so whenever you leave the closing, if there's like little things that need to be straightened out, the attorney can sign on your behalf, but the agent shouldn't be doing that for you.
But that's just a general power of attorney for
Yeah.
any like clerical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, and then second question, if the seller agrees to pay some of the closing costs, but expenses end up less than that amount, does the buyer keep the difference?
It usually is not going to be less. To be honest, because you can use it towards closing costs as well as prepaids. But I guess if there was some left
It
over,
goes
they
back to the
actually-
seller, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
It's-
always seen where it goes back to the seller, so the buyer doesn't get to keep.
Yeah, because it usually says up to
Mhm.
like however a percentage or a dollar amount.
That's a great question. Thank y'all for asking. Any other questions out there? No? Okay. Well, we hope that you have learned something today as it relates to closing costs and down payments that you probably didn't know. I know Debbie did mention programs and things of that nature. So everything that she quotes you is going to be dependent on which program, she has you in, enrolled. Should we say enrolled? Or what do you say? Which program you have them? How do you say it?
Enrolled's not the right word.
No, not enrolled. Whichever one she has you matched with. Maybe that's the word. There you go. Okay. So that determines if you're going to have a down payment and, kind of what kind of closing costs you have to bring to the table. But right now in this market, like she said, sellers really are not paying closing costs, for the buyers. So if you are in a program that you have to bring a down payment and closing costs to the table, that can be quite a big chunk of money. So, definitely we want to look at all those numbers on the front end. Are we getting another question? Okay.
Can closing costs be avoided?
Can closing costs be avoided?
No.
Have you ever had anyone, what about VA folks? Have you ever had anyone that, they literally have to bring maybe very minimal to closing?
I mean, there are some costs that the veteran cannot be
Mhm.
charged, like the CL 100 they can't pay, and there's a certain amount of percentage on the original, or on the lender side that we can't go over. I think it's a percent of the sales price or loan amount. But no.
Yeah, because you have to pay, there are things like she talked about your prepaids, you have to pay your portion of taxes, insurance for the year, those kind of things. So there are going to be some, some closing costs. You can get gift money though.
Yeah.
So that's a way to help avoid.
And if you know an attorney, you might waive your fees.
There you go. So, but the main thing again is, before you close, they typically the attorney will send out your closing disclosure a few days before closing. So really, what I do as your realtor, I go over that disclosure with you to make sure you understand all of the fees before we get to the closing table, because don't want there to be any surprises on, what you need to have for closing. So it's very important that you make sure you understand the disclosures and that you go over them prior to closing.
And you're usually not going to see a big variation between my initial loan estimate and the actual closing disclosure, which is done 3 days before closing, unless there's like a big variation in the property taxes that I estimated versus what the attorney comes up with for the calculation. And then if your insurance came in a little bit higher than what I estimated, and then there was one other thing. Sometimes the HOA fees, which is the homeowners association fees, we're not always aware of those up in the upfront part of the process. So the attorney specifies those on the closing disclosure, so sometimes that makes it a little bit higher.
Awesome. So as you can see, Debbie's very knowledgeable about this. She's like spitting this off Overheads. It's not even written down. I love it. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and end our segment for today. But again, if you have questions, you can feel free to drop your questions. If you've gone back and watched the replay, please drop questions. We'll make sure we respond to you. Send a DM. We'll make sure we get back to you. If you're in the process of getting ready to purchase a home and you need a lender, absolutely. We're going to want you to reach out to Debbie Berry. We'll include her contact information at the end of the video and drop it in the comment section. And as always, if there are any properties that you're interested to purchase, absolutely feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to schedule a private showing for you and be able to help you settle into your new home. Thank you guys so much for watching us today, and we look forward to chatting with you next week.